We're starting here with the basic teapot. We've done this a zillion times by now, so it should be old hat. Now let's open up the material editor. And we're going to be talking about a property of objects called specularity. Let's apply a basic material to this object, and let's talk about what specular is. We've talked about the basic color of an object, but there is another color called the specular color, which also makes a big difference. You see, when light hits an object, it does actually a few things. One thing it does is just generally illuminate the object as it floods the area with light. Another thing that it does is that it creates these little areas that are hot spots where the light specifically bounces off of. Again, better demonstrated than explained. So right now we're not seeing any specularity on this at all. This is a very dull, matted finish to this sphere. So let's go down to specular highlights and take the specular level up a little bit, and you'll see what I'm talking about. See, now we're starting to see some specularity on this sample sphere. And it's starting to appear metallic. This kind of looks like a tin teapot now. Matter of fact, let's go ahead and select this viewport and hit F9 to render. It kind of has a metal-ish look to it. Let's go ahead and close that. So specular level controls the intensity of that highlight here. This specular swatch controls the color of the specular highlight. Notice that there is also this little area to add a specular map. This can be very important. Let's go down to maps here, and let's add a basic noise bump map again. And let's take down the size again. There we go. Let's go back up to the main area here. F9 to render again. Very good. Now, this would look more realistic if the highlights were not coming off of just this one area, but we're bouncing off all of these little ridges here. Let's close this. And so basically what we want to do is duplicate this same map over here to specular color and specular level. And in the same way that a white and black map is used to direct what areas are bumped and which are not, we also can apply a grayscale map to the specular level and color areas to determine what parts of our image should have specular highlights and which should not. Now, going through and applying this same noise map to both of these properties separately and making sure that the parameters always match up is a real pain. So instead what we can do is just click and drag here, and this will copy. And just as before, when we're modeling, we can choose to make an instance or a copy. Now we could also swap these two, but we don't want to do that. Let's just hit instance for right now. That way, if we want to change the properties of one noise map, it will affect all of them. So I'm going to hit OK. Let's do the same thing for specular color. Hit OK. And let's go ahead and render that. Now, if we were going for a metal texture, this certainly wouldn't be what we want. But you can see that these ridges look a little bit more believable as the specularity seems to hit them a little bit stronger. There tends to be just more of an even look here. Now, this may or may not be what you're looking for, but you still have that option available to you. Now, I'm just going to turn off all these maps for right now, just so we can finish explaining what's going on here. You might have noticed that our M turned into a lowercase m here. When we have a map applied to a property and it's on and active, this will be a capital letter M. If we have a map applied but it's turned off, it will be a lowercase m. Now, finally, we got to talk about one other thing here, glossiness. Now, look up here in this sample slot as I'm adjusting the glossiness. What the glossiness will do is it's going to change the width of the specular highlight. Right now, it's fairly wide, and it has kind of a metallic look. But watch as I change it here to make it a little bit more fine-tuned. It now has more of a plastic feel. So again, folks, this is why you need to become a student of nature. See how light interacts with different objects. How does light interact with metal? How does light interact with glass? How does light interact with wood? Specularity is one of those properties that can make or break your material. So enough on that now. Let's go ahead and start talking about opacity mapping.